Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the session. Excuse me, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the session this afternoon on how to be more competitive in research, HDR Internships. So this is part of a new session that we're offering as part of a new series on how to be more competitive in research. And I'm Catherine Theobald, and I'm the HDR Partnership Officer. So my role is all about HDR industry engagement at QUT. Joining me today is Georgia Riddler. Georgia, I don't want to pop your video on, say hello. And Georgia is our HDR career educator.
Hi everyone, I'll be in the background and feel free to ask any questions.
If you haven't already done so today, please put your student number in the chat. This is so that we can record your attendance. Now that's particularly important for students who are looking at self-sourcing an internship because of a new program that I'll talk about later today. We really want to mark that you have attended this session because it will mean that you can progress to the next stage of some internship processes. If you don't want to put it publicly in the chat, you can always send it as a private message to Georgia and I, but it's just your student number. Okay. So some housekeeping before we get started. Hopefully you can all hear me. If you can't hear me, you're having any audio trouble, we'll put it in the chat and let Georgia and I know. Make sure, please, I'd ask that you're all on mute today so that we don't have any interference, background audio coming in. If you have a question at any time, you can ask it via the chat, or if it's a really burning question, there'll be parts where you can actually put your video on and ask it. But just for the ease of getting through all the content today, and there is a bit to get through, I mostly just take questions through the chat, and then Georgia can jump in and answer them if you have anything, and I'll answer them as well. Now to get started, I'd just like to play the acknowledgement.
QUT acknowledges the First Nations owners of the lands on where we gather today and pay our respects to the elders, laws, customs and creation spirits of this country. For thousands of years, the First Nations owners have gathered to share their knowledge and stories. We pay our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and acknowledge the important role they play within our communities. We recognise their long and continuing connection to country, the lands, winds and waters throughout Australia. We recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, researching and learning.
So welcome to the session today. As I said earlier, I'm Catherine, I'm the HDR Industry Engagement Officer. So Georgia and I are both part of a team called Graduate Research Education and Development, or GRED for short. So we offer training specifically targeted at HDR students at QUT, so it's all customised to the graduate research HDR experience. And it's there to support 20 skills that we've kind of divided into advanced, lead, engage to both help you complete your thesis and equip you for life after your degree. To keep up with GRED and all the many training offerings that we have on, we send a fortnightly email to your student email address called the GRED HDR e-update. A reminder that you can always forward your QUT student email to your primary email address. We really recommend that you take the time to read this each fortnight. It gets sent out at the end of the week. There was one that went out last Friday and in a fortnight. So next Friday, you'll get the next one. Okay, now the title of this session is How to Be More Competitive in Research, HDR Internships. Before we get really into the internship side of things, I really wanted to talk about industry engagement and how it fits into that whole idea of being more competitive in research. So before I do any of that, I want to really clarify what I mean by industry engagement. Industry itself is really a catch-all term that we use to describe a whole range of different types of organisations. So that might be businesses, governments, government, non-profit organisations. It's really, if you're in the sciences in particular, it's really important that you think about industries not just being with private enterprises and companies, but it's really this catch-all term to really describe anyone who is a research end user. And now engaging with industry, with that very broad term, means involves working with these groups of people on things like internships, design sprints, like mentorships and other activities. So when we think of industry engagement, there's really no one-size-fits-all approach. It can encompass a range of different opportunities and experiences. So today, within that broad banner, we're talking about funded internships in particular, but there's also things that you can participate in during a HDR degree, which fall under that industry engagement banner. So we have things like the Visual Age thesis and 3-minute thesis competitions. There's networking events. There's design sprints that you can participate in. And we've also, as of today, just launched our new immersion placements, which I'll talk about a little later on. For the how to be more competitive in research side of things, I want to talk about why industry engagement as a broad concept is really important. Now, I will preface this by saying that we'll be going into this in a lot more detail in a training session that I'll be holding in about a week's time, which is specifically on HDR industry engagement and all those other type of opportunities. But I really wanted to emphasize in this session that industry engagement is really important, regardless of the career path that you're aiming on. In particular, that it's increasingly important for academic success. So when we say that, and when we're talking about how to be more competitive in research, we're talking about things like industry engagement is important because the ability to articulate the impact of your research to anyone is now an essential skill that any research graduate needs to have. Also, academics are increasingly expected to have industry engagement skills and experience with or in industry. So even if you don't have that experience within industry itself, the fact that you know how industry works and operates and can tailor and understand the needs of like end user focused research. There's also the fact that career academics must still be able to articulate the value of their research to the end user and the general public in every funding application you're going to do, or to every industry partner. Oh, I've just done something with my slides. So we have an upcoming training session on this on the 23rd of Feb, and I'll get Georgia to pop that in the chat that you can register for. There we go, it's there now. Excellent. So, like I said, today though is all about internships, and we're going to go into a lot of detail about in particular what we mean when we're talking about this very particular internship program. So today we're going to cover what a HDR internship is, why you should consider doing an internship, some pretty specific internship details about when and the different types of internships you can do, how to get an internship, and the training and support available from QT and from GRADE in particular that will help you get your internship. So before we get started, and we kind of do the deep dive into what an internship is and all the information today, I'd really be interested to hear from you as to why you're here today. If you've come with a particular question in mind that you would like answered, or there's sort of some specific information you want to know, I'd be really keen to make sure that we get your question answered today. So please take a second, quickly pop your question in the chat, and we'll be monitoring those and make sure that we both answer your question today in the content, but it also will help see that if you have a question, I'm sure that other people have that question too. So pop it in there and then we can get an idea of what everyone's here for today and that we're not all alone in this process. While they're coming in, please don't be shy. I'm sure there are lots of questions that you have today. Let me know what they are. We have a brand new Engage with Industry section of HiQ. I'm going to keep popping in questions. So I'm going to come back to those questions. I'm going to show you something first. So I'm going to share this new page. So as of this morning, there is a whole new section on HiQ dedicated to industry engagement for HDR students. Okay, so to get to it, I'm going to start from the very beginning. So if you are on your HiQ homepage, you will go to My Communities and then Research Students. Now you'll see that there's a brand new section that's been added to the research student community on Engage with Industry. Now I'm going to be referring to this section a lot today because what we've done is we've taken a lot of the questions and the content and the processes that you'd normally only find out about in this session and added it onto a one-stop shop HiQ section for you to look at. So this section includes the general information on industry engagement and also includes the various programs you can participate in. But if you click on internships, you'll see that there's a whole range of sections, including if you click on this one, like sub-pages, all about everything you need to know about internships. So we used to have a HDR internship guide. This has replaced the guide as well as added a lot more information there. So you'll be able to have a look at all that content and we'll be referring to it throughout the session. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. So let's see some of your questions. Okay, so someone's in their final year of submission. I wanted to know about options. Great, we'll definitely be talking about that. There's one from some incoming students, which is great to hear. Welcome to QUT and HDR Research. And they're curious about the different things they should be navigating throughout candidature. People who are just starting and want to know what it's all about. Wanting to know when in candidature you can undertake an internship, and we'll definitely be talking about that. What the different options are. Okay, some people who are interested in working in industry and want to make themselves as competitive as possible. Yeah, internship placement for the nonprofit, social entrepreneurship, development sectors. Okay, and some more questions about timing and how it fits in with candidature. And research when it's a collaborative agreement. Okay. Angus, I'm going to come back to that question. We talk about the timing and the eligibility because it'll fall under that banner, but that's a very specific question to your internship. Okay, there's also another one about that comes in with timing as well. If you're undertaking an internship at the end of candidature, when's the best time to start? Okay, so let's get started with what is a HDR internship. So a HDR internship, very generally speaking, is a short-term, quite tightly focused and clearly defined project that's either with or for industry. So it's important to note that internships are competitive, and just because you are looking for an internship doesn't mean that you'll necessarily get one. So it's really important that you prepare with broader training and activities throughout candidature, and also you might want to think about preparing today with some smaller industry engagement activities, things like networking events, competitions, immersion placements to help build your network and prepare you for an internship. Now, the internships are really the largest industry engagement opportunity that we have available to HDR students outside of doing something like an industry funded or industry focused research project as part of your PhD or MPhil. Now, we'll come back to the specific details of an internship, but I wanted to start also with why an internship was really important, knowing that it is this sort of short-term, tightly focused research project. Something I will just mention on this slide though, is that this is quite a broad definition. Now you might be looking at that thinking that, well, that could be anything. And that's kind of what an internship is. We work with students across all the disciplines at QUT. And if you think about the wide variety that we have in our thesis projects, that's pretty much just the broad scope that you can have for an internship project. So we'll go over the finer details in a bit, but really anything that you can come up with that suits your learning goals and fits this definition is most likely going to be appropriate for an internship. The reasons you'd consider doing an internship is it allows you to both practice and evidence your skills in the real world. So throughout your HDR degree, you're gaining a great variety and combination of skills that you can apply to both to your future career, whether that is in academia or industry. but doing something that's outside of your thesis project with industry on these projects gives you a chance to practice those skills further on an industry project, but it also gives you something for your future job applications, wherever they may be, to show that you can evidence those fantastic research skills, both within a university and on your thesis project, but that they directly transfer and that you have transferred them onto a research project. In addition to that, an internship helps you build connections, as well as gaining an understanding of industry and end user focused research. Doing a project with an industry partner for an internship and understanding the constraints around industry focused and end user research is quite different to doing a research project with your thesis. So it gives you an understanding of what that difference is to help break down some of the barriers we have around the industry university gaps, particularly in Australia, which is a priority for a lot of universities across the country. Okay, now specifically with the internship, they're typically about 3 months in duration, but they can be anywhere from 2 to 6 months, potentially a little bit longer, depending on the particular project that we look at. Now, they're mostly industry funded, and you receive a scholarship throughout that internship that's been funded by the industry partner. Now, the exception here is that sometimes you'll work on a project that's part of a broader collaboration between QUT and the industry partner. So while you're working on a project that's with industry and for them, your QUT can sometimes be the internship host because it falls under that broader relationship. But those funds have come from that collaborative arrangement, whatever that may be, whether it's an existing grant or them engaging with QUT directly. The project itself is developed between an academic mentor, who may or may not be your supervisor, yourself, and the industry partner. There are project goals that are developed as part of that kind of tightly and neatly scoped project. But in addition to that, you're also supported to come up with learning outcomes and learning goals that are tailored specifically to you and your development. Now, these goals are iterative throughout the internship and change or may change and may be refined as the internship goes on. Really, the thing to sort of say at this point is that you are supported throughout the internship, not just with the project, which the active mentor supports, but also to make sure that you get the most out of these internship experience. Now, projects are separate to your thesis research, so they're quite tightly defined and they are different to what you are doing in your thesis. Part of the reason for that is that all the IP generated in an internship is owned by the industry partner. Now, these details that I've outlined here can vary depending on the internship scheme. So when I talk about these details, I'm mostly talking about internships that are through the QUT internship model, as well as the main third-party provider we have historically worked with, which is HDR Intern. So we're talking about internship types. Along the line, we're talking about the QUT internship model, which covers all HDR students, the HDR intern, as well as external schemes or programs. So while I'm mostly talking today about the first two, which is kind of what those details cover, there are also so many external schemes and programs out there that HDR students can apply for. So some of the learning support that we offer can be provided and attached to those external schemes or programs, but some things around the scholarship and how it's funded will vary depending on each individual scheme. Okay, now to give you an idea of like the broadness of what an internship is and what different projects can look like, I've got two very different examples to show you of past internships. So the first one is a project that had it was a chemical engineering student who was doing a market research project with a mining company. Now this student had lots of chemical engineering experience and wanted a future career in industry, but didn't have the experience that was sort of the gap between those two things, which is what happens with the product that you're doing your chemical engineering project on goes to market. And so that's when this market research experience really helped make the student more competitive and added a completely different skill set and experience to their career portfolio. Another example we have is a fashion PhD student who went and did an archival research project for a not-for-profit arts organisation. Now this student was a great example of evidencing those skills in different contexts. So they had already done some archival research in their thesis project, but by doing the internship, they were able to evidence the transferability of those skills into a different setting and show that what they have done in their thesis research and part of their PhD project does directly translate and have lots of value in real world projects outside the university as well. And this student is actually currently working in the GLAM sector. Okay, now we talked about the benefits before. I just wanted to put this slide up here to show that internships are really designed to be these multi-beneficial arrangements. So there's lots of benefits for you as a HDR student, but if you're thinking particularly down the line about self-sourcing an internship and getting your supervisor involved, there's also lots of benefits for both the industry partner being involved and the academic mentor to help you support you through that internship. We had quite a few questions on when can you participate in an internship. So these were, depending on how long you've been at QUT, there used to be some old rules quite some time, more than 12 months ago, about when you could do them. But I just want to make clear that these are the new rules and they're staying put. So if you're a PhD student, you have to have completed your confirmation of candidature to be able to do an internship. If you're an MPhil student, you need to be about 12 months into your degree or like a full-time equivalent of that. So if you're a part-time student, that kind of thing, the main thing they look for with MPhil students is that you've submitted and completed your research proposal. Now, internships must be timed to minimize the impact on your thesis project. So that means that if you are in the stage of your research where you have like things growing in a lab, or you're in the middle of data collection and you're in the middle of interviewing people, that may not be the time to do an internship. So this is where your personal responsibility and your project management skills come into play to make sure that you, when you're thinking about your candidature, if you're at the beginning, that you're thinking about when some good times you might want to consider an internship are. Now, for students who are on a PhD or an MPhil project that's part of a broader collaborative agreement with, say, a hospital, like the question I had in the chat, the rule about the internship timing must minimize impact on the thesis project comes into play. So for those particular situations, we look at it on a case-by-case basis. We have had students, and we've got a student currently who is on an industry funded PhD project, and the industry partner allowed that student to take a 3-month break and go and do an internship project. But it's a case-by-case basis. So if you are under one of those arrangements, then you can let me know. I'll reach out to the GRC and just see what's in your scholarship and your thesis project agreement to see if it would be possible to take a gap. Now, internships can also still be undertaken if you're during thesis examination. If that is you, then we recommend that you start looking for an internship in the final months before you lodge for examination, but then you would be looking for something that ideally would start just as you lodge for examination. So really, if you're about a month from lodging, that's not the best time to be pausing everything to pick up an internship. We really want you to, at that point, if you're quite close, to get to the finish line, lodge for examination, and then start an internship. Now, when you're on an internship, we actually pause your candidature. So that means that if you're on an existing scholarship, or if you have any upcoming milestones, we extend those by the internship duration. So that means that you're not penalised in any way for undertaking an internship. So say you're on a 3-month internship, when your internship starts, your candidature pauses, so you stop consuming load in the system, your scholarship pauses, and then you get put on the internship scholarship, and we enroll you in an internship unit for the 3-month or whatever the duration of the internship is. And then at the end of the internship, we extend your milestones or any upcoming dates by 3 months, as well as you pick up your scholarship at that point. So you don't lose any of your existing scholarship. I hope that answers your question, Annetta. And you just pick it up at the end. Right. Now, I mentioned briefly before that you're supported through an internship by an academic mentor. Now, this mentor just doesn't have to be your supervisor, but it certainly can be. But they do have to have expertise in the internship content to be able to both vet the internship agreement and project to make sure it's suitable, but also so that they can support you through. Now, they are incentivized with research funds for supporting you through this internship experience, as well as with, they get the funding recorded on their RIDE profile. Now, sometimes advertised projects will have an academic mentor attached to them if they're the person who sourced the internship, but sometimes most of the time they don't, and that's when we speak to the student and see who they want to be their academic mentor. We see if they would like it to be their supervisor, or if they'd like to extend their network, or the supervisor's busy, and in which case we provide support to help you find another alternate academic mentor. Just to give you a brief idea of the project funding, if they were doing the QT model, which is about a 3-month internship, the industry partner would pay $10,000 for the 3-month internship, of which the HDR student receives a $3,000 per month scholarship, which would go to you. It's paid through the scholarship system. It's a tax-free stipend. And then there's $1,000 that goes to the academic mentor as research funds. Now, the project costs vary depending on the internship duration, because we just stick with a $3,000 per month student stipend for the student that changes. Now, if you've heard of internships before, you've probably heard of a program called HDR Intern and HDR Internships. Now, this is a program that's currently in transition, so there's no advertised opportunities at the moment because they used to be a federally funded, not-for-profit program, but they are currently transitioning. Their contract with the government was up, and so they'll be moving to ATSE. We don't have a lot of information about what this program is going to look like in the future. So I just want to let you know that if you were thinking of doing a general application with HDR Intern or anything like that, that now is not the time to do that. Hold off with anything HDR Intern for the meantime. We'll be communicating with you as the months go on and as we get information. As soon as I know, we will communicate it to students about what this program is going to look like in the future. Historically, they were for PhD students only, and they had funding models that favoured domestic students. That may be the case going forward, we're just not sure. So we'll let you know. Now, the internship process. So I want to give you an overview of the internship process on a very kind of meta level, as we'll be going through a lot of these steps now. But I wanted to say that each step is supported by Gred and Myrol, and all of this is covered on the new HiQ site. So each step that we go through, there's detailed information on HiQ that you can go and have a look at. And Georgia, I might get you to just put that HiQ internship link into the chat now for people to have a look at. Thanks, Georgia. So the first step of the internship process, and really most of the industry engagement process, is that you complete an online registration form. So this adds you to our mailing list. Now this part is really important. Last year, if you were reading the e-update, you'd see that we advertised a lot of our internships in the e-update. Moving forward, there'll just be a line linking to available internships in the e-update, but the internships themselves will actually be emailed kind of like a job alert, if you've ever gotten those before, to students who are on this mailing list. So if you want to stay up to date with the latest opportunities and have them arrive in your inbox, please submit the registration. Now, when you do this, it creates a profile that you can update during candidature. So if you've submitted your profile and your registration a little while ago, you may want to take the opportunity after today to revisit that and update your details. Now, there is a section on the registration form where it can, if you choose to, trigger an email that will help you start the conversation with your supervisor or supervisors. You can add multiple people onto this form. If you're not ready to have that conversation yet and you just want to submit your registration just to stay on the mailing list for now, then just make sure that you leave your supervisor details off the registration form. Those are optional fields, and there's a big warning sign above that saying that. Thank you. I've got a very good question in the chat saying, where is this form located? Now, I'm going to show you that because we used to give you the link directly in this session. But instead, can everyone see HiQ now? I think I've shared that to HiQ. Yes, okay. Just reshare it. Now, anywhere on this new industry engagement section of HiQ, you will find a link to it. So it's just here under tools and resources, there's the HDR Industry Engagement Registration Form link. So you click on that, it comes up. It's not loading, it comes up here, okay? Now you have to make sure that you're logged in as a HDR student to be able to access this form. If you're logged into your staff account, you'll get a big red message at the top saying that you need to log out and log back in with your student login. And like I said, this registration form is on the right-hand side of all the HiQ pages. So it's just on here, HDR Industry Engagement Registration Form. It's also in the text here and throughout pages like sourcing and securing an internship, where it's the very first step here. So this page that I'm on now is actually what we're going to be talking about in this session. And for those of you here today, you've already met the second criteria, which is attend an internship information session. That's what today is. It's also in this resources form. So we have plastered the registration link all over HiQ, and you can access it there. And the link to the page that I'm on right now, oh, we've actually got it there with Georgia sent that to you. Okay, so I'm going to just reshare to my PowerPoint. Sorry guys, I'm a bit back and forth between HiQ and PowerPoint today. So the other really big benefit of registering is that some internships are not advertised. Sometimes I get emails from industry partners and there's no time to advertise to students, and they need to have some names of potential students in about a 1 to 2 day turnaround. When that happens, I go to the registration list and see who is available and who's interested in internships. So I really recommend that if this is something that's vaguely interesting to you, that you go and submit that registration form. And in particular, there's a section on the form which asks you what type of industry engagement activities you're interested in. Please ensure that you've ticked internships. Now, when it comes to the point after you submit your registration and attended the information session, which you're doing today, the next stage is to then go out and try and source and secure an internship. Now, there's two main options for doing this. The first is that you can apply for an advertised opportunity. And the second is that you can self-source an internship that is suited to your own needs and tailored to what you're looking for to get out of an internship. Now, we have a new online program to support this that I'll be talking about in a second. That's part of our brand new HiQ site that's only a few hours old. Now, if you're thinking of applying for an advertised internship, they are advertised on HiQ. When we do this, we collate opportunities from a range of different sources. So when and if APR internships come back, we'll advertise them there, but also some of those other external schemes that I was talking about, we collate and put on the available internships page. There's a whole new page. It's also, I'll show you, on the there's also a feed on the right-hand side of HiQ that you can look at. So just like it's here. So there's currently no internships available, but it's on the right-hand side under tools and resources on any of the internship pages on Engage with Industry. We also advertise QT internships through this source, depending on what's available at the time and if we have time to advertise. Sometimes we just have to go to our registration list. Sorry. Now, the instructions on how to apply for an advertised internship are on HiQ. We go through that in a lot of detail there. Actually, I'll bring that up so you can see what it looks like on our new HiQ site. So under Source and Secure an Internship, you can click on Apply for an Advertised Internship. And this walks you through the process of what to do to apply for an internship. Now, in particular on this page, we've created a new online resource to help you secure your internship. And that's called Nailing Your Internship Application. Now, when you're applying for an internship, we really recommend that you treat that internship like a job application. That means that you take it seriously and that you put effort into making sure that you're articulating your skills and putting your best foot forward. This goes back to the fact that internships are competitive in nature. Now, on that apply for an advertised internship page on HiQ, we have some online training materials on nailing your internship application. So that's in the form of a PDF guide that both Georgia and I have developed. Mostly Georgia, as a HDR career educator, she's an expert in helping students secure the opportunities that they're looking for. We also have a video recording of Georgia walking you through the process, and that's about an hour long. So there's quite a lot of detailed information on there and really how to nail that internship application. Now, there's just been a question that's come through about have there been virtual or online internships in the past, especially given COVID now? And also, is it possible to do international internships, or are they mostly in Brisbane, Queensland? So absolutely, there's virtual online internships. We've had, in fact, most of the internships we've done over the last 12 months, and certainly the majority of the ones that have been advertised are for online or remote internships. So that means that you can either do them partly at home, but we also support you at QUT so that you have access to the resources and facilities here to help you be able to undertake the internship so that you're set up for success. In terms of international internships, they are also very much possible, either done in a remote capacity or traveling overseas or interstate, if you're thinking of an interstate internship in person, pending travel restrictions. So at the moment, international internships are off the cards unless you're a HDR student undertaking your research overseas because of COVID-19 and you're looking at doing something in your home country. That would be the only kind of exception there, but again, that's a case-by-case basis. So reach out to us and we can talk about those specific circumstances. But in the future, when we kind of get back to sort of a post-COVID normal and international travel is back on the cards, absolutely you can do an internship internationally. Okay. So it was part of when you're applying for an international internship for an internship. After you've done your application, which is an online application, just like if you're doing a job application, the next stage is that you do an interview for the advertised internship. So students are shortlisted based on their online applications, which is why we say treat it like a job application and put lots of effort into it. So the internship provider will then interview and select the students. Now, partly this is because they're looking at the skill set and making sure that you're the right student for their project, but they're also making sure that you'll be a good fit for their team and their organisation and what they're looking for. And to help sell that, you would set that up in the application with the information that you provide there. So again, really recommend that you look at that nailing your internship application resource. Now, in addition, if you get to the stage of interviewing for an advertised internship, or you know that you're going to be interviewing for jobs in the future, Georgia also offers a fantastic workshop on HDR interview strategies, and she's put the details in the link in the chat there for you now for you to go and register for that. I highly recommend this session. Georgia is an expert, like I said, in all things HDR careers, and this is an absolutely incredible session that she runs, and it's tailored specifically to you as HDR students. Georgia also has a range of resources on HDR interview skills, which are available on Blackboard. So if you go to the link that she's provided, under resources and tools on the right hand side of that link, you'll be able to go to Blackboard and see some of the more static online resources. Okay. Now, for those who are looking at self-sourcing an internship, you can definitely do this and that's suited to your own goals. Now, in the past, we've had students source internships from their supervisors, including maybe their external supervisors who've offered them a project with their industry partners. We've had students source internships through their mentors if they're doing something like the MNIS program. We've also had students and their supervisors source internships through contacts they've met at conferences, and they've been interested in students' research, what they presented, and want to work with the student, and an internship is developed that way. We've also had students receive internship offers based on their 3MT presentations. So there's really like a range of ways you can go about this. If you are interested in self-sourcing your internship, I recommend that you start by maybe having a chat with your supervisor or those in your network about what options you have available to you. Internship sourcing itself is a great example of why building your network during candidature is so very important. Now, when you're self-sourcing an internship, this can either be, and I mentioned it at the very beginning, either a part of standalone engagement, or if your supervisor or some of your network's working on a larger existing kind of collaborative project, we can also look at building the internship into that if everyone thinks it's a good idea. Now, to support you to self-source your own internship, we have an online program that we've developed. Now, this program walks you through the steps to self-source an internship and is available on the new HiQ site. I'm going to be saying that a lot today. So under internships and source to secure an internship, there's a whole page dedicated to self-source an internship. Now, to be able to do that, there are 3 prerequisites first. You need to have submitted your industry engagement registration form that I talked about earlier. You have to attend this session that you're doing today. And then thirdly, Georgia offers a fantastic training session on self-sourcing a HDR internship, which I'll speak about in a second. Once you have met those prerequisite conditions, we have a new online program to help you get an internship. Now, this program, once you've completed all the requirements, which I won't go to it now, includes resources on, go back to my slides, on how to approach industry partners and really help you with the logistics of securing that internship. So it's things like, we've got a template email on how you might approach an industry partner, asking them for an internship and telling them about the program. It includes agreement templates they might be interested in, as well as collateral and information that's specifically targeted to industry partners on taking you for an internship. Now, you get to this online program through HiQ. Now, one of the prerequisites for this program and being able to self-source your own internship is that you attend Georgia's self-sourcing a HDR internship session. Now, in this session, you'll go into a bit of a deep dive to understand the principles behind identifying an internship opportunity and also self-sourcing an internship. Now, this is a really good session generally about identifying opportunities. So if you're thinking that you're interested in internships and you're not too sure about self-sourcing, I still recommend coming along because it really will help you think about who you know in your network and how you can go about sort of identifying potential opportunities to help you set you up for success after your HDR degree. Now, once you've sourced and secured your internship and you have an internship offer on the table, there's a range of tasks you need to do to be able to start that internship and also to support your learning. Now, these are all outlined on a HiQ page that you can have a look at. So things like, there's an internship agreement that needs to be completed, and then those pre-internship tasks where you set your learning goals and do weekly check-ins and do sort of some assessment during the internship itself. I won't really go into that today because that's if you've kind of got an internship coming up. But it's all available on HiQ under the required tasks for your internship tab. So you're welcome to jump on there and have a look. And a lot of that learning is supported by an online module, so you can do it at your own pace. The point here is just to highlight that we do support you in that learning and that it's very much kind of self-paced and online, so you can access it around your internship requirements. And we really try to make it not too onerous, but really all about helping you make the most of this internship experience if you get one. Now, when it comes to thinking about HDR internships and how one can really work for you, and sort of thinking about potential internship options, whether you're thinking of applying for an advertised internship or self-sourcing your own, we really recommend you start with the HDR skills assessment tool. Now, we've done the hard work for you and collated all the skills and experience that HDR students should have and most likely do come out with during their degree. And we have collated it into one spot where you can self-assess where you think you're at with those skills, as well as record the evidence of what you have for each skill set and any training opportunities you may have done for each skill. But in addition to that, if you think you need to improve in a particular area, we also have the training opportunities that relate to each skill recorded in this tool. So if you're thinking about some of the next steps I'm going to talk about, and certainly if you're thinking about coming to Georgia's self-sourcing and internship session, I recommend that you start with the HDR skills assessment tool. Now, as part of this, and you're thinking about how an internship can work for you, we really want you to think about how to make the most of the internship experience. Now, we certainly do that and help you through that with activities once you've obtained an internship. But when you're still thinking about an internship as a potential option, we really want you to have a think about this at this stage as well. And when you do that, there's really 2 steps to it. We want you to research yourself, and then have a research and think about your exploring your career options for where you want to be in the future. Now, to help you think about where you're at now, use the skills assessment tool. Think about where you're at with those skills. And then also you might want to have a look at some potential job applications out there for where you potentially want to be 1 year out. And then we want you to have a think about what is missing and how an internship can help get you there. So an internship, in my mind, is all about helping you fill in that gap between what is missing between where you are now and where you want to be about 1 year out, or when you finish your HDR degree, or it may be further in the future. We sort of say 1 year out to help be realistic and how an internship can help you get there. And sometimes it may not be that you're missing any particular skills, but sometimes it may be that you want to provide further evidence for those skills, or you may want to have more networks in the industry you're thinking of going into. So particularly if you're thinking about self-sourcing, have a think about these aspects. This is actually a worksheet that I will send you after the session. Now, as part of your researching yourself and thinking about where you are now, think about also yourself and like, what are your values, what are your strengths and what are your skills if you're thinking about where you want to be. Also think about what experiences that you have so far, what can you evidence. Again, the HDR skills assessment tool will help you do this because it is a section to record the evidence you have for each of your skills. Think about what experiences you've had and then what are you missing. And then lastly, we want you to think about the people. So who do you know in your network? Who have you met? Now this may be to help when you're thinking about self-sourcing an internship and who you can approach. But it also may be identifying people that you don't know or people who aren't in your network, but you would really like them to be in the future, and sort of like groups of people. And also who, maybe in your network, not in your network, maybe your supervisors or someone else you know. So this is really about doing some reflection work on where you're at currently and then how internships and industry engagement can help you get to where you want to be in the future. Now, one thing that we've introduced as of today, actually with the launch of the HiQ pages, is our new immersion placements. So when it comes to some of those shorter experiences to help you build up to an internship or help you prepare for your career after your degree, this is where something like an immersion placement comes in. Now, this program is all about exploring research careers in the real world. So it's a chance to build your network through these short-term placements that are anywhere from 1 to 30 days that are in industry or research settings. So this program came about because we know Georgia and I speak to students all the time about things like exploring the range of options that are available to them as HDR students, or students may have particular careers in mind, but they haven't necessarily got any experience in that field, or more importantly, they don't necessarily know what the day-to-day of those roles look like, or many networks in that area. So the idea behind these is that you go and you're immersed into that industry setting and that you're shadowing and observing and finding out as much as you can about what this job looks like on a day-to-day basis. Now, this can be anywhere from like the head of an R&D lab or an R&D researcher in an industry setting. It can be another leading academic in another lab in a university. It can be a CEO of a company. It can be immersed in a startup to find out what they're doing there. It can really be anything. and it's all about tailored to you and what you're looking for. Now, for some more information on this program, we put it all on HiQ, and it also has an online program that supports it, where you go through the eligibility criteria and then you go out and source your own placement. And you can do multiple of these during candidature. Now, something else is for you. My slides have gone out of order, is our HDR Career Development Program. So Georgia runs a series of workshops, career Q&As, online modules, and she has HiQ pages coming that talk about HDR career development, and in areas such as articulating your skills, networking, self-sourcing, all the list is there. Georgia, I don't know if you want to quickly say a few words about your career development program.
Hi everyone. Yes, I look forward to working with you. As Katie has said, we work together on a range of career development and industry engagement projects. And our goal is to walk with you on your career development journey to make sure you have the skills and the knowledge and the awareness of the industry and academia and the job market, so that you can be as prepared as possible for graduation. So please do join me at any of the webinars coming up, and you'll receive one-off promotions about that, which should be very helpful for you. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Georgia. That leads us to our next slide, which is quickly show you what's coming up. So Georgia has a session Thursday this week on how to become more competitive in the job market. That self-sourcing a HDR internship program that I was talking about is coming up on the 16th of Feb. Now on the 17th of Feb, the Office of Industry Engagement are holding what looks to be a fantastic session on how to develop research, how to develop relationships to advance your research. So I recommend checking that one out. I'll put the links to all these in the email that I send out after the session. And then the information session on HDR industry engagement on how to be more competitive in research is coming up on the 23rd of Feb. Now, my slides got out of order. So where to from here? If you're interested in things HDR internships or industry engagement, please submit your registration. If you want to, you can start having a conversation with your supervisor about some of these experiences, and particularly internships, to see if they have any thoughts and perhaps where they fit in with your candidature. I also recommend that you start participating in training, like we've talked about, and maybe you think about participating in some smaller industry engagement opportunities, maybe like immersion placements or design sprints, or think about the 3MT or BYT coming up to help you prepare for your life after your research degree, but also maybe if you're thinking about doing an internship in particular, they will really help you get there. And lastly, that if you've already submitted your industry engagement registration, thank you, but maybe take this opportunity to go back in to that and have a look at what you submitted at the time. Maybe you submitted an old version of your resume, update some of the information that's in there. As you grow, I'm sure that information will too. In terms of very small things that you can do to get started today, recommend interacting with your peers as much as possible throughout your HDR journey. This will help build your network, but also will help with that sense of connection and understanding that you're all in this together during your degree. Come along to events and training, like I said. Really recommend you that we have so much training and opportunities available that you might want to get involved and try new things during this time. You're in this supported HDR experience that we offer through grades for other service providers across the university. When you're also networking with your peers and sort of trying new things, think about networking outside your discipline and getting to know HDR students and staff and academics across the university outside of your discipline. That's where things like design sprints, when you're in transdisciplinary teams, really come into play. But also, you know, for your future research projects, who knows what your fellow research is going to be that you might want to come up with a project together. And lastly, and this will lead into the articulate your skills that George is doing on Thursday, you might want to think about practicing your barbecue pitch. Now this, you know, we don't really have I don't like to talk about elevator pitch. I think the barbecue pitch is much more appropriate for an Australian setting, which is all about being able to articulate your research in really accessible terms to anyone. You know, inevitably when someone asks you what you do and you say you're a PhD student, you're an MPhil student, you're a research student, the very next question is, well, like, what's your research about? Tell me about it. This is all about, you know, being able to convey very concisely, sometimes in 30 seconds, what your research is on and what the impact of that research will be, so that the person, whoever it may be, understands you and also is quite impressed about what your potential impact of your research is. So, you know, start practicing that today at whatever stage you're at in your journey. Now, on to kind of sessions. There's been a bit of content covered today. A lot of it is on HiQ. Does anyone have any questions? While you're typing your questions, I do want to thank you for coming along today. If you haven't already, please make sure you put your student number in the chat so we can record your attendance, so you'll be able to progress. And you saw hopefully through this session that this session is a prerequisite for a lot of the programs you might want to do. So please make sure that you put your student number in so that we can record that you're here today. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you very much. Awesome. Lots of thank yous, not a lot of questions. Thank you, you're very welcome, everyone. Look, I'll stay on for a few more minutes. If you do have questions, please send them through, or feel free to email hdr.intern@qut.edu.au. If you can't find the information on HiQ, my contact details are also on HiQ. We've had a question that came through as just a direct message to me, saying that, do we have to wait to be eligible to put the application in? If the application you're referring to is a registration, the answer is no. Please put your registration in as soon as possible. So if you are just started or you've been offered and you may be day one of your PhD, but this is something that you're interested in, please submit that registration so we can keep you up to date with what's happening in the space. We track your eligibility by looking at timing and everything. And you can also come back to that registration later and let us know, oh, I'm thinking of, you know, I've finished confirmation now, I'm now looking for an internship at this time period. But please, absolutely, you can submit that before you're eligible to actually do an internship. It's probably a good idea to do so. Okay. Well, there doesn't seem to be any more questions. I'll just quickly put, I am in between. I'll just put my email address in the chat. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. For, J.L.Snow, you're saying I am in between a project, so can I register for later? Not entirely. So do you mean that you're in between, say, like an MPhil and a PhD?
Yes, I'm a PhD student, Catherine, and I'm working on one of the project, which is my PhD project itself, but I'm in between the programming and things which are running now. So it might take me another month or so that, you know, I can finish one particular part of that. So I was wondering that, will it be a good idea if I register myself now, and then, you know, I can keep looking at what other options are there over the month, and then I can decide when I want to go for it?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, generally the message, no matter what your circumstances are, is to register even if you're vaguely interested. It's just so that you're aware of your options, right? It's such a great thing when you're thinking about, you know, career exploration and what's coming up, that you make informed choices. And part of that is knowing what's available and what's out there. So please register if you're interested. Certainly registering puts you under no pressure to be able to have to do anything industry engagement. You can register and then not participate in any opportunities. We don't hold you to anything. Really, okay. It's about helping. It's like helping us help you to provide you with the information that you need.
Great. I'll do the registration today itself then.
Cool.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And Katie, John Paul's got a question at the bottom too there.
Yes. What percentage of HDR students actually do internships? Look, the percentage is quite low. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. The first being that it's quite a new program, relatively speaking. We've been going since 2018 with internships, and there's only been lots of iterations throughout that. At the moment, I couldn't tell you a percentage off the top of my head because they are competitive processes, but the program over the last 6 months has exploded. So especially due to COVID-19, industry partners are looking at ways that they can innovate in their practices, which means that they're looking for students and potential employees who have the skills to be able to work in those settings. And those skills are the skills of a graduate researcher. You guys know how to access the latest information and apply it and come up with new ways of thinking. That's what your thesis projects are all about. So you're incredibly valuable in those settings. So more and more companies are wanting to come on board and offer students internships, and they're becoming more receptive to students approaching them for internships as well. So while the numbers are quite small, they are growing, and there's a lot of potential out there at the moment. It all depends on how you articulate and sell yourself. Georgia, do you got something to add there?
Yeah, I just thought I'd add to that, Katie, that because the internship programs have been founded on the HDR Intern program, which has been set internships that have been resourced by or sourced by the HDR Intern and then brought to our attention. I guess those internships have been set processes, set projects. But what we're looking to do here at QUT now is to be able to upskill you to self-source your own internship. So as you all become more skilled in doing that, and at the same time right now industry is very open to having HDR interns involved with them, we are going to see this explosion even more. So it doesn't matter what faculty you're in, what discipline, what your research area is, it's all going to come down to you identifying your skill gaps, you identifying some connections with industry, and then being able to partner a project together through self-sourcing, and anyone can do that. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities.
Thanks, Georgia. This is why I should come along to the self-sourcing your internship session, when Georgia will be going into this in a lot more detail. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'll thank everyone for their time today. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Please go through the HiQ site. And I'll be sending out a lot of the key links and information, including the slides and the recording of today after the session. Thanks for your time. I hope you have a great afternoon. Bye.